Welcome to Health Oddity, the show that strips away the jargon and hype surrounding all things health and fitness to help you live a long, strong and energetic life. Lining up at the bar this week, here's Peter Lant, Paul Bassett and James St. Pierre.
Hello and welcome to the Health Oddity podcast, episode 37, I've just been informed. Because we're starting to lose count now, which is good. So we're doing quite well. I'm here with a very special guest who I will introduce in a moment. But for now, we will talk to the usual suspects. We have Mr. Paul Bassett, who's to my left on the top as I'm looking at this. How's it going, Paul?
Well, not bad. Not bad. I'm just kind of chilling.
Enthusiastic as ever?
Well, you know, I mean, do I have to give jazz hands or something these days?
Well, you can do if you want. You know. Yeah, Tim's doing it now, you know, but you can't see him at the minute. So, and then we'll have Paul, who being his usual jovial self, and then we'll have Mr. James St. Pierre. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, and I'm doing incredibly well because I've seen our guest today is wearing a Spider-Man t-shirt, so I'm already happy. So I'm looking forward to this one.
We've just been talking before we started recording here. And our very special guest said, just like, you know, because we said, you can talk about whatever you like. And he goes, don't tell me that because I'll start talking about superheroes. And James was doing cartwheels around the gym. So he's like, hey, let's start talking about that.
And it turns out there's more than one Captain America shield.
Yes. We'll get onto that.
There's a production line going in Wakanda now. So, yeah.
And there's Superman as well. Look, man, we're all here. We're all here. So... right, so that just leaves me to introduce our very special guest. So in the run of all of the guests that we've had, we've got someone extra special again today, and it's a Mr. Tim Anderson from Original Strength. So say hi, Tim. How are you doing?
Hey, good. I'm doing good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. So just a quick intro. Tim runs Original Strength, and we'll talk a lot about that. And I met Tim he probably doesn't remember, but he ran a workshop over in the UK in Nuneaton, of all places. I'm still not quite sure where that is myself. But interestingly as well, actually, Fabio Zonin, the master Strong First instructor, used to do an exchange from Italy over to Nuneaton. That's where he lived. He's got like an English mum, he calls her. Huh. So he learned English in Nuneaton. So that's why his is a bit sketchy.
I don't know. He speaks better English than I do.
Yeah, and me. But so you run workshops kind of all over the world, and you ran a workshop over here. And it was brilliant. There was, it's one of those things that just works for pretty much everyone, because it's things that kids learn how, like when a kid learns how to walk, that's where they start from. So it's just teaching adults the same thing again, because everyone sits down for a decent amount of time. So, so Tim, if you want to just fill us in on kind of, why you do what you do, where it's going next, just in general, a little bit about yourself, just for the guys and girls who are listening.
Okay. My name's Tim. I've been in the fitness industry since 1998. I was kind of a meathead, so to speak, where not that I was really huge or anything, but I was really stubborn and not smart in how I trained. So I was always getting overuse injuries. And that led me down a path of corrective exercises and things like that, because I wanted to fix myself. And then that led me down a path of frustration because I wasn't fixing myself, or I was just chasing my own tail. And really, so one night, I showed you my Superman doll. I love Superman, always have. I was just sitting around and I wasn't feeling like Superman. And I know I'm a big giant child, but it just didn't seem right. So I asked God to show me how to train to be bulletproof. And then in 2 weeks, I picked up some really wonderful books by Carla Hannaford and Sally Goddard Blythe. And it's just like God just kind of connected the dots on how the human body is designed to grow and heal itself. And so that's really what started Original Strength. And it's nothing more than really just tapping into our original movement blueprint. And it ties us together.
That's why I love it, because it is so simple. And you know, the manual that I got from the course was great, because like you were talking about, you know, the vestibular system and what have you, and how everything has to run through there, and how your body heals itself at the speed of your central nervous system, which is very fast, obviously, you know. So kind of how did you develop the system? Where did you start? Because I mean, like you say, you were chasing corrective exercises, which most people, what you've just described is where kind of pretty much everyone gets to, don't they? Overuse injuries, or like, you know, and then like, how do I fix myself? And they go and see physios and chiropractors, and it just carries on and on and on. And then they're like, right, I'm chasing my tail, like you've just said. So you obviously, like you say, you decided, you were like, right, I'm gonna do something for myself. So how did you develop it into a system to help pretty much everybody, anybody who wants it?
That I had some help with that. Like, so I started, you know, just self-experimentation, and I would just start crawling around the house, started crawling outside, and, you know, just playing with crawling. And then I got Sally Goddard Blythe's book, and I started looking at reflexes and stuff. And I started talking to a buddy of mine about named Mike McNiff. Him and I wrote the first book called Becoming Bulletproof. And so Mike and I got together, and then we brought in Jeff Newper, and we just all started playing with these childlike movements. And that's just how we kind of ended up with the Big Five, just through playing and experimentation. Jeff was really good at like getting people to try things and explaining how things work. And a lot of people like really respected Jeff in the kettlebell industry. And so he put out a newsletter. Hey, do you want to get together and learn how to press reset on your body? I think, you know, basically how to make your body bulletproof. And he had a lot of people that took him up on it, and they wanted to have a little 4-hour workshop. And so that's how it really started. It was an overwhelming response. We had no idea how many people were interested in not hurting or improving their, you know, kettlebell training or whatever it was they were doing. But man, those first, you know, few workshops we had like 30 people show up, but they kept asking for another one. And that's just kind of what started it.
So what was the problem with your own training and your own body that got you to the point where you were starting to think outside the box? Because most people will put up with quite a lot of pain for a long time. I've done it, and I've got plenty of clients. And also the traditional route would be chiropractic, physio, obviously some rehabilitative strength and conditioning exercises. What made you start thinking that the typical route wasn't the one you wanted to pursue?
So that's a good question. So because I was trying to survive my way through a bunch of kettlebell certifications. And so it was a lot of volume really stacked into short periods of time. And I would not allow myself to rest because I'm stupid. So I did my first 3-day certification. And while I was at that certification, I found out they were going to offer the level 2 certification a week later. So that's the most volume, you know, that first certification was the most volume I had ever stacked on top of myself, not to mention the training I did to get there. And then, so I did not recover from that. And I jumped straight in. As soon as I got home that Monday, I started training again for the next level. So needless to say, my elbows started getting, you know, very tender, tendonitis in my elbows, my shoulders, all the pressing, all the snatching, all the everything. So that really, and that led me to like, but I still never stopped, right? Because I'm like, well, I was just too stupid for my own good. And so then that led me to going to physical therapists. That led me going to chiropractors. And then through the kettlebell family or community that I was now involved in, that led me to something called Z Health. Which was my first introduction to corrective exercise. And while I was there, also in the kettlebell community, FMS really was starting to take off too. So along with Z Health, I tagged on FMS with that. And So that's where I got into the whole corrective exercise world. But just like with my kettlebells training, I wanted to be the best at Z Health and the best at FMS. So I just dove myself all into it, and learned it. I was always studying, and I was trying to do everything perfect. But no matter how perfectly I applied the principles or how perfectly I was doing the concepts, I was still not getting myself free from injury. Now, I will say, had I been smart and just took a week or two off, that might would have helped me out a lot. But I didn't do that.
Were you trying to use all of this while you were still training that same volume as well?
Yes.
Thinking,
yes.
well, all I do is stack this on top of that, and then all that pain will go away.
Yes.
Which we know isn't necessarily true, is
it? That's well, I had to prove it to myself. So that's how you learn, though. You walk through the door so that you know what it's like to walk through the door. Otherwise, it's just a guess. So yeah, I stacked on all my kettlebell training, my Z Health training, my FMS training, and I'm sure I was doing some other stuff in there too that I probably shouldn't have been doing. But yeah. So I just kind of collected a big toolbox that I did not really know how to use, which is funny because, like I said, I was going to be the best at it, but I never allowed myself to just, settle down and just focus on one thing and recover, so I was just accumulating stuff, really.
It's quite easy to go down that path of just constant corrective exercise where your workouts just become corrective exercises, don't they? Sometimes, I've had injuries years ago where I just I looked at my workout and it was basically just a series of corrective exercises, which kind of drove me mad.
Which is funny, right? Because I told you I didn't stop doing kettlebells, but technically when it took me an hour to go through all my joint mobility and all my corrective exercises, I really didn't have time to do kettlebells anymore.
Yeah. And I think that's another thing that you mentioned there, Tim, which a lot of, I know trainers are notorious for it, myself included in the past, and probably quite a few of the listeners might be, whereby, like you say, you accumulate kind of knowledge and you accumulate techniques and you accumulate equipment, and you kind of, for a period of time, you just keep adding and adding and adding and adding to what you're trying to do. And then it sounds, certainly from the conversations we've had with people like Dan and people like Steve Maxwell, and it sounds like yourself, you get to a stage where you actually realize that what you need to do now is start to strip away and start to lose some of that stuff. And you can't do everything and be the best at everything. And like you say, your body starts to let you know that, doesn't it?
It does. And that's really what happened is once I discovered OS or our movement design, that kind of just was an automatic strip away of everything for me. I let go of everything else and just dove right into it, and never really looked back. Like that, from that moment when I first started crawling, it like that changed everything, which is so weird, but that's how it worked out.
Well, everyone needs to watch that video of you crawling a mile. I think it was a mile.
It was a mile, yeah. I don't know how exciting that would be for everyone, but it is.
It was sped up. It was sped up, if I remember. Yeah.
It was.
Stop now. We'll play it now for an hour, and then we'll come back to the conversation. Yeah. Everyone's still here.
So when you actually, sorry, go on, Pete.
I've forgotten what my question was. Carry on, Dave.
Okay. No, so I was just going to say, so in terms of your training now, I mean, we'll obviously delve more into, OS, original strength, as we talk, because I think possibly, certainly over in the UK, I know that there's people sort of in the know and in the industry who will know what it is. But I think there's a lot of people who certainly, our kind of clients and the lay people and people listening, and also a lot of people in the fitness industry in a more kind of commercial standard sense of the fitness industry and the big sort of commercial gyms and things probably won't know what it is. So we'll talk about that more, obviously. But in your training now, you say that most things have stripped away. Do you do predominantly the kind of original strength yourself now, or do you have other modalities that you train with as well?
So I did go through a season where all I did was original strength. Like that was it. And now I do, once your body is tied together as it's supposed to be, you don't have to like do the same, certain things all the time. But I do press reset every day in the form that I wrote about. And I have a book called Discovering You, where I have this movement template called the 20 Daily 21s. So I press reset every day in that vein, where it takes about, 10, 20 minutes. Now for my training, I love body weight exercises. I think the Hindu push up and the Hindu squat are phenomenal movements just for health and vitality. So I do those. I do a lot of walking. Walking probably it makes up over 50% of my training. And I am, this won't surprise you either, because I love Dan John. Him and I are buddies, but I think carries are where it's at. Like if you want to get strong in a very simple, old school, and be very resilient, just easy carries every day or often throughout the week will just really help keep your body very tied together and functionally strong. But that's for the most part pretty much my training, unless there's like new things I want to try to learn or play with. But I don't count that training. That's just me playing around.
I just remember what my question was going to be. So it's funny because what I wanted to ask was when you started crawling, how tough did you find it? Because you've obviously lifting heavy bells, lifting heavy weights. How tough was crawling, which is just body weight crawling along the ground, right? Like, did you find it easy? Did you just go up and go, oh, well, this is great? So
it was easy until it wasn't. Like, so, and it's funny because I don't know if you guys know who John Brookfield is, but he is the inventor of the battling ropes training system. He's in the Guinness Book of World Record for stupid, crazy things, for so many different things. But the whole world knows how to do exercise with ropes because of John. He actually lives about an hour from my house. And he met me, called me up through Kettlebell, the Dragon Door publication one day, or I had my phone number for some reason was in that book. Anyway, at the same time I started crawling, John was playing with crawling, but he was doing it with like 100-pound chains and crazy stuff. And we didn't know that we were both crawling together until we had a conversation one day. And he's like, Tim, you really got to come to the house and let me show you the stuff I'm doing. So crawling was easy when I was just doing body weight crawling for going, for about 30 seconds at a time. But John likes to do endurance things to break the Guinness Book of World Record all the time. So he was like, why don't you start accumulating time? He goes, because really what that'll do for you is build mental toughness where you won't know any limitations, because your mind will get so strong, your body will follow. Your body's never in danger, and then you'll be able to handle all of life's stresses. He goes, because if you can handle that kind of stress in a workout, that carries over into your day-to-day life, especially if you can manage your breathing and your thinking while you're uncomfortable. So he convinced me to start accumulating time. And that's when crawling was not easy anymore. So it's like 2 minutes seemed like an hour in the beginning. And I remember the first time I ever reached 12 minutes, man, that was like a huge, huge celebration. Because it was, I probably spent a month or maybe 2 months trying to get up to just being able to get to 10 to 12 minutes. And I hit 12 minutes at the fire department one day out in the back behind the fire trucks. And I was like, holy cow, felt amazing. But then after that, there's like something, the scales tipped. But John was right. Once my brain knew that I could do that, and that just made it easy all of a sudden. So then crawling for time or distance, it really wasn't a thing anymore. It might have gotten uncomfortable, but it never got really hard again.
So let's go back to the origins of original strength, which is that from that pain, you were looking for a kind of elegant solution that was slightly left of center. And you read this book by Sally Goddard Blythe, and I've got this book. I mean, I remember getting it before my first child because I'd heard you talk about it. And I get my clients to do rocking, I get my clients to crawl, I get my clients to do stuff on the floor. And one of the reasons I do is because you talk about how safe it is, and you can't really injure yourself once you're already down there. A lot of these basic exercises to get the body feeling confident are the same movement patterns that babies go through in order to build their confidence. And so this book by Sally, The Well-Balanced Child, basically walks a parent or an individual, the reader, through the development stages of a child as they learn to move and how they learn to become aware of their body and create balance. and strength. And so you read that book and you thought, maybe adults could do this. Is that kind of what went through your head?
Yeah, that's so what happened was there's like a sentence in there where maybe small paragraph where she talks about kids that skip crawling have learning disorders. But if they go back to crawling, they can fix or heal or cure or, mend those learning disorders. And then she started talking about people that had strokes. So now the brain is damaged, but they were able to rewire, rebuild, and remap their brain if they started doing the same movements they did as a child again. So crawling and, which tied their brain together. And so I read that and I was like, well, if it does that for damaged brains or people that aren't healthy, what would it do for healthy people? Like, why isn't anyone else doing this for everybody? If it's working for people that have had issues, what if it just really makes other people even better or helps them even more? So that's what really, really flipped the switch, was like, well, if it works for them, why wouldn't it work for anybody? And that's what tipped it off.
That's what I love about it as well, because at the workshop you were talking about, you were like, you can't really do it wrong. There's no wrong way. There's just a way to do it and then getting better at it. But it's never wrong. It's just, you just get better at doing it, which is why it's just foolproof, isn't it? I love it.
I never really teach crawling. I mean, I just say, guys, crawl, just make sure your knees don't touch the floor. Or if you're really struggling, knees can be on the floor, and that's about it. And then people kind of discover it. They go through this kind of mental learning process where their body kind of problem solves.
Well, that's where you realize people always look at what they're doing as well. So when they're crawling, they'll put their head down and watch the feet. But when you say, no, watch your baby crawl, the head is up. Yes. And then people struggle with that. They're like, that is really hard. It's like, yeah, think how much a baby's head weighs compared to the baby. Your head weighs nothing compared to that. Get it up. And they really struggle. But that's how people go through life as well. They're forever looking down at what they're doing. And you've probably said it. Perry Nicholson says it. Most people say, where your eyes go, your head goes. Where your head goes, your body goes. So everyone's falling forwards all the time. So if you can just get your head up and look around, and that's like Paul said, he's never really taught anyone crawling, but that's what I see people do is straight away is like they're just looking down, trying to see where they're going. And it's like, that doesn't tell you where your eyes tell you where you're going. So look straight ahead and go.
Well, not only that, because these are childish movements, right? But they're the movements that tied us together as a child. And so they're always there, that we were born with them in our nervous system, and that stays in our nervous system our entire lives. Never lose it. That program, those programs are always there. What I like to tell people now, what's really cool is so you can tap back into that program at any age because it's in you. You have that program. But what you don't have in you is a program that says self-destruct. It's one that says, now it's time to start whittling away all your abilities. You don't have that program. You've got the one that builds you up, though. And so that's why one of the reasons, this could be controversial. With OS, we don't say that OS is corrective exercise, because however the body's moving is how the body is moving based off of its design. The body's moving because of the information that it's getting. Mm-hmm. So how it's moving, the expression of it is perfect at that moment, whether we judge it bad or good or whatever. It's just doing what it's doing based off of the information it's getting. So when we tap it back into those original programs, we're giving the body more information, better information to create a better expression.
So what are the expressions that you're looking to create?
So that's where it gets beautiful. Better posture, better energy, better emotional stability, better countenance, fluidity and movement. And here's where because everybody wants to know, but I want to get strong. All the brakes come off of your body's expression. So more strength, more speed, more fluidity, more power, more grace, all of it, like all the beautiful qualities of movement get released. But with that, because nothing about you is separate, you think better, you have better focus, your emotions, or you can manage them better. Everything about you dances together, right? So the better you move, the better you feel and the better you think. And to Peter's point, if people are always looking down, and the body does follow the head, but so does everything else. So if you're always looking down, your countenance is down, your thoughts start going down, your stresses go up, things like that. So we either live in fight or flight or rest and digest. and they all dance together. But looking down is going to be more of a fight or flight lifestyle than eyes up on the horizon and being confident and just feeling good. But anyway, those are the expressions. And when we press reset, we get all that rich information that the nervous system's looking for, and then the nervous system feels safe. And once the brain feels safe, the inhibitions come off. And the inhibitions are many, and they're all woven together. So it's not just physical; it's physical, mental, spiritual, whatever. Everything about you is whole.
Yeah, I mean, this is like you said. That's beautiful. That's why I love it. I've been doing a thing. It's like a therapy thing called PDTR, and it's resetting your central nervous system, basically based around like pain in joints and stuff like that. So if there's a pain in a joint that has had trauma, but the trauma was 2 years ago, it's fixed. The pain shouldn't, unless there's structural damage, the pain shouldn't be there, right? Because the tissue will be fixed. But your central nervous system will still be like, that is a threat. So there's a way of resetting that. And that's what I like about this. And I didn't understand this because I've done this course last year or over the last year and a half. So when I came to you, I didn't fully understand it, but actually, you know, what you're saying, and I read the other book you recommended, The Brain That Changes Itself. And so I've been learning a lot about brain plasticity. And it's kind of like you're saying, you know, you don't use those movements, they're still there, but they lose meaning in your head, and then that real estate goes to whatever you're focusing on the most. So you change your focus back to that, like press and reset, like you say, and then it starts to grow again, and then that can deal with, you know, like you say, taking the brakes off for your body, saying, right, I'm going to make that hurt because, or your brain saying, I'm going to make that hurt because it's not very strong. Whereas actually, if you start from the ground up again, it builds confidence. So it builds confidence at a neurological level, which is just, you know, that's one of the reasons why most people live with pain for most of their lives, don't they? Because they don't know how know how to do this, and it's so simple.
Well, not only that, once you take on pain, it affects you in so many different ways. Like one, it affects your thoughts. Two, it draws you from being an outward person, it draws you to an inward person because it takes all your focus and consumes you, and then your thoughts get negative and you can't really be as loving or as giving as you otherwise would be because there's always something bothering you in here that's taking up your attention. And so then it just spirals, and so then you start to move worse, or you start to guard it, you start to protect it, or you start to go down that road, I'm broken. And I can't, this is just how I'm going to be. And now next thing you know, hi, I'm Joe, I've got a bad back, or I've got a bad knee. I heard it 20 years ago, but it still hurts. Like, and so you just absorb it, and then it becomes part of the identity of the person. Whereas we're not made to be that way. I mean, and the body is designed to heal and remove those traumas and to remove the memories of those traumas. If we just engage in the design, which means we have to put a lot of trust though in the design.
Yes. It's got to be done consistently over time, and you've got to trust the process. Yeah.
I was about to say, how do you get people, because pain can make people be very anxious about moving, very anxious about a lot of things. And how do you give people the confidence? So I'm sure you see lots of people, everyone from the fitness trainer through to someone who needs a lot of rehabilitation. What are you doing to overcome those hurdles with people?
One is I try two things. One, I tell them the truth. The body can heal and you're not stuck. You're not broken. You're not fragile. Whether they believe me or not, that's cool. But at least it's out there. They've heard it. So I've tried to plant that seed. If they're with me, then I'm going to teach them how to press reset. And I'm going to let them experience what that does to their body. Like Peter said at the beginning, change happens in the body at the speed of the nervous system. So if somebody has had pain for 10 years in their knee, and within 2 minutes of me showing them how to press reset, and then that pain disappears, well, now we've got a conversation and I've got their attention. And they're going to be so, here's always the look, like disbelief.
Yeah.
But what that does is it creates an interruption in their thinking, and it shifts their paradigm immediately. Maybe I don't have to hurt anymore. Or maybe this is not the way my life's going to end. So I can be pain-free.
The problem there is the person who doesn't want to believe it is likely seen everybody. and it's never been fixed. So they're like,
Yes.
why would this be different? And it's like, well, because it is different. It's taking you right back to the beginning and starting again and building that confidence, because people want to be fixed. But say you're 40 years old, you want to be fixed back to a 40-year-old person who can lift this and do this and run this and that's it. And it's like, no, we're taking you back to a 1-year-old and starting you off again, except you'll get there quicker.
Yeah, and really,
you don't have to do another 30 odd years of it, but if you do it for 30 years, by the time you're 70, you'll be a strong 70-year-old.
And the craziest thing is, like, if you look at it big picture wise, well, it makes sense. But when you're stuck in it, like, so if all you know is that your story is that I had a knee injury 10 years ago and it still hurts, well, you're in it. Like, you're not going to see the forest for the trees. And so the beautiful thing about pressing reset is it makes so little sense that it stops you in your tracks. Like, if you've hurt for 10 years and just by breathing a certain way or remembering how to breathe, and in 2 minutes you don't hurt anymore just because you were changing how you breathe, that makes you struggle with stuff.
Yeah.
But it gets your attention.
That's another thing that's really good about this sort of stuff is how quickly you can kind of not prove to someone, but how quickly, like you say, you can grab someone's attention by just try this. Like I think you said about a lady who came to you and she was sitting down and you just had her tapping, like doing the cross crawl type thing, just tapping the opposite knee with her hands the whole time you were talking to her. And that activates, it activates that pattern within the body to be able to walk out of there without sticks, I think you said. And it's, and then it's like, that's attention grabbing, isn't it? Not like,
and it changes the game. It changes the narrative, right?
Yeah.
It gives you the possibility to write a different story.
So based on that, you're talking about breathing, for instance, but you also mentioned the big five earlier. So let's talk about that, because that's like the main crux of where it all comes from, doesn't it? And then, once people have got the big five, your imagination can open up and you can do these moves in many different ways. Because I think I've got a quote from you here: "Your imagination is your limitation." I think I remember you saying that.
Yeah.
So what are the big five?
So the big five resets, and these are like, if you do any of these, you don't have to do them all, but like a reset's a reset. So if you press the reset button on the nervous system, that might be all you need to do. But the big five are breathing properly, the way you're designed to breathe, because everybody breathes, but we're designed to breathe a certain way. To breathe that way, with your diaphragm, filling your lungs up from the bottom to the top. That would be the first one. The second one is owning your head control. Controlling the movements of your eyes and your head, which is really activating your vestibular system. The third one would be rolling around on the floor, which ties your body together, which is really the beginning of your gait pattern. And then the fourth one is rocking back and forth on your hands and knees, which is that movement alone is just phenomenal. Changed most people's lives. And then the last one would be crawling or getting into your gait pattern, which is, we start with crawling though. And like you said, so those are the five, but from there you can branch out to, like, those five can become exponentially, 335 if you wanted them to. It's just, that's up to your imagination, but you really don't have to go far away from those five things right there. And it just changes everything about your body. It gives you your foundation for movement.
But how would you explain the vestibular system to people who've not heard that term before?
So two ways. One, I tell them it's their balance system, because everybody knows what balance is. And even if you haven't heard of it, hey, if you spin around circles really fast, you're going to get dizzy. That's your vestibular system. Everybody's kind of familiar with that. So call it the balance system. And then I just let them know that it is the most, how do I say this? Every muscle in your body is connected to it. Every muscle. And your body is designed to keep your head and eyes level with the horizon often. Like that's where we're designed to be. So if we don't use our head and we don't put it where it belongs often, so we're not moving it and stimulating it often, if every muscle in the body is connected to it, it's kind of, in a way, it's like atrophying those reflexive connections. So like Sally Goddard-Blythe, her book, she has a quote that is probably the strongest quote for the vestibular system I've seen still. It's she says, mastering head control is essential for balance, posture, and coordination. So if you want balance, posture, and coordination, you have to own the movements of your head. But what she's really saying, though, is mastering head control is essential for living a healthy, happy life. So that's really where, kind of get there in a really quick point is that, hey, this will make everything about what you do better. It'll help you live your life better.
And
yeah,
do you find
and the idea of that you've just reminded me as well, the idea of reflexive strength. Because if someone's trying to lift weights, they're trying to say, right, I need to get tight, I need to squeeze as much muscle as possible. But if you don't know, if you don't know where they are, which muscles you're trying to squeeze, and you're trying to get your central nervous system to say, right, squeeze this muscle over here. I'm not going to name muscles because people probably won't know what I'm talking about, but it's like squeeze this muscle over here, and you're like, how do I do that? With this, like especially with the head control, like looking over your shoulder, it's muscles down the side of your back, your lats and everything. You turn around and they switch on without you even having to do anything.
Yeah.
So then, like you're saying, it's connecting your central nervous system to your muscles, saying like basically contract that. How do I do that? Oh, that's where it is. And then all of a sudden, people get that awareness thing, which is very important, obviously, like you say, to keep you moving, to keep you locomoting, basically.
So we've gotten so detached from our design that, so like in the exercise world, strength is now a skill, and that's fine, because especially if you're if your sport is strength and performance, like powerlifting and stuff, that is a skill. But we've tried to break down, tighten up here, tension this, tension that, focus on this, bracing, right? But that's not the way we're designed to move. Mm-hmm. We should be strong by just our virtue of being humans. Our inheritance is to just be able to pick stuff up without having to put a lot of thought into it. Not worrying about how we pick it up or how we position our body, or if we need to hold our breath and squeeze this or brace our abs when we pick something up. Well, that's really cognitive. But if you and I are just outside doing work or living life, there might be something I need to pick up without having to think about it.
There's that great YouTube video where the guy opens the fridge by bracing.
Yes.
He
does a Turkish get up to get out of bed, doesn't he?
He does a Turkish get up, yeah.
But that's what so then we start practicing those skills so much that's all we know how to do. And so then you will find you'll do silly things like hinge at the hips to open your dishwasher to put your dishes in there. I've done that stupid stuff.
Yeah.
instead of just opening up the dishwasher and putting my fork and spoon in there, right? Like, so, but then what happens though, when in that one moment though, you forget, as you should not have to remember, but then you go to pick up your child, or you go to pick up your dog or a pencil, and then you hurt yourself because now you didn't brace, you didn't hinge, you didn't stick, whatever, so that's where the trap of that skill comes in, when honestly movements are right, being strong's our right, that's our design, and we should not have to think our way through it. We should just be able to effortlessly, fluidly express ourselves.
I was just going to ask you,
hang on, James, I'm going to stop you there because I'm going to bring in a superhero thing here. I talk about it like, I think it's, what's the second Batman film out of the good ones?
Which version?
Christian Bale. Dark Knight. Is it the Dark Knight when he's in China and he gets he has the electric current running through his cape. So his cape's all loose. And the way I use it is it's like the electric current running through his cape, which makes it rigid. So if you're doing something, your body should just be like automatically, very quick.
Yes.
If you need to brace, for whatever reason. It should just happen. So that's what I think of reflexive strength is, and that's how I've explained it to my guys. Is you put that current through that cape, and it just goes. It's not necessarily rock solid, but it's gonna support you, and it's gonna keep you safe. So
that's a good explanation. And I like that. I like that a lot.
Thank you.
I was just going to ask Tim myself, in terms of people who do move, I'll use the term, because I've done it myself. What term will I use? people who put a lot of thought into movement, you know, where you've got pain, like I've over the years, I've had back problems and back pain and things like that. And you kind of adapt your movements to protect the pain, don't you? So, you know, you mentioned the dishwasher thing. I've done that myself where, you know, I've not been comfortable just to sort of flex the spine and just relax and do things as I should. So you start to, when you've had pain for a long time, you do adapt your movements, don't you, to protect the pain. So, when someone comes to you or enters the sort of the OS sort of system who may have had pain for, you know, 5, 10, 15, 20 years, what's the kind of the first thing that you try and do to get, because they may even just be moving that way now for the last 5 or 10 years. It's no longer conscious. They're just doing it to protect themselves. How do you break that down?
So first thing we do is we do a movement. We call it the original strength screen and assessment. And the short story for that is that it shows us what they're lacking from their resets. Like, where are they struggling? Like, what part of their developmental sequence could they use some help in? Where's their foundation missing? Is the easiest way to explain it. What's lacking in their movement foundation? And so then once we see where they're at, we can help them learn how to press reset to turn on. I call it like turning the switches on, making all the right connections so that electricity can run through, that juice can run through and turn things back on, like Peter was explaining. So like the thing with back pain is, once we have like say back pain, we get compensation patterns, because the brain's amazing. It rewires things to get tasks done. But just because we get those compensation patterns, they don't automatically go away until we engage in our design and reset the original patterns again. So once we have a person, say that person with back pain, they come in, we put them through our screen and assessment. We also then do show them how the reset makes them move and feel better at that moment, because that's the only way we can help get rid of that fear, because fear travels through the nervous system. It's information. And when you have fearful thoughts, that's just like having pain, and they both travel the same neural pathways. But the bottom line is they make the brain feel unsafe. So whether you're in pain or you're afraid of being in pain, you're sending 2 signals to your brain that I'm not safe. So really what pressing reset does is, especially once they experience it, then it takes that I'm not safe story away, so that the nervous system can express itself. And so then their thought processes change.
There's in this PDTR thing I was talking about earlier, there's something within that which is exactly what you've just said. So you can fix a physical problem on someone, and the pain might be like, it doesn't like go away instantly, you know, but they'll be like, oh, I can move my arm now, and it doesn't feel as bad as it was. And so the signal's reduced to that arm to say there's no longer a threat there. But you can then say, right, go away and think about all of the things that you couldn't do because of that. And the pain will come back, because it's the thought of it has brought that back. And that's another thing that you can treat with this and reduce the signal like the brain sends to the body. But this is a much simpler way that people can actually take control of that themselves. And it's like you say, people can think their way into pain as well, because I treated a guy the other day, and he had a sore elbow, and he was saying, every time I move it, I think, he goes, I try to imagine what's going on inside there and what's causing the pain. And I'm like, you're creating this loop. It'll certainly not make it better. And if anything, it'll make it worse.
James, I've seen people like say they're really scared to move when they come to me, and I'm going to lay them down on the floor. I've seen them brace. They hold their breath, they brace, and they get it down to the floor. And, you know, it takes them like 30 seconds to lay down. And then I've had them like remember how to breathe or move their eyes and head in a certain way. And then they get up, but they get up, and then they're like, wait a minute. And then they start moving like, can I get up and down from the floor again? Because just that fast, all that bracing and everything they needed, they didn't need anymore. And something in their brain clicked too, where it just let them move again. So it took that fear away. And Peter, I don't know if you remember, so in the workshop, we would test the resets against a movement baseline, say a squat or a toe touch.
There was a guy there tested it against a pull-up, And he didn't realize how many times you were going to ask us to do it. And he did about 100 pull-ups. He was knackered by the end.
So it's a secret hypertrophy workshop is what it is. It's great. But so to your point, Peter, your thoughts affect how you move too, just like the resets can. So and you can test this is why I brought this up. You can test your movement with a negative thought and see how you move. And then you can think something positive and do that same movement and see how it's so much different. Because the negative thoughts tell your nervous system, I'm not safe. And it restricts how you can move and express yourself.
Exactly. One of the guys who's teaching me mentioned something and he said people talk about pain receptors in the body. And he said that's a lack of understanding. They're not pain receptors, they're threat detectors. All they're doing is detecting threat. And if they think there's a threat, they'll tell it that there needs to be pain there, whether there does or not. It's just it's a threat. So you need to get rid of that threat, and then it all goes away.
It's almost as if every bit of information you absorb is safe, not safe, safe, not safe. Which one is it? Safe, not safe.
Yep. There's a great, I've mentioned this before. I'll send it to you actually. There's a great YouTube, TED talk by a guy called Lorimer Moseley, an Australian guy. He's hilarious as well. But he talks about, he got bitten by a snake. He didn't know he had. He thought he'd scratched his foot on a twig, nearly died. He got over it, like after treatment and everything. But he was out walking in the bush again, and he brushed past a twig with his foot, and he was in agony. Because of the remembrance, his central nervous system remembers the last time that happened, he nearly died. So it's amazing. It's amazing.
Shouldn't have been walking in a bush then, should he?
Well, let's face it. If you live in Australia, you're dicing with death every day, aren't you?
I was just say, if you're going to get bit by a snake, you don't want to get bitten in Australia.
There's loads of things to kill you there.
Yeah.
So with this system, it must have been a very exciting process when you started exploring it and seeing what it could do. You kind of must have started stacking on these changes that you saw not only in your own body, but then when you started experimenting on this kind of, because one thing that you're not going to run out of are people to experiment on, because there's a lot of case studies to try and explore these concepts, isn't there?
So that was the crazy thing. So, because this all started out selfish, right? I was just trying not to hurt, and I wanted to be able to train all the crazy ways without taking breaks, right? I just wanted to be Superman. But what happened was when I wrote that, when Mike and I wrote that first book, Becoming Bulletproof, people actually bought it. Like, it was crazy. But people started writing letters, crazy stories in from their experiences. Like, I had no idea. Like, I only knew my experience. Crazy, like miraculous type stories were coming in for stuff that I was like, this is amazing. Like, and then I'm like, why would they make this up? They have no reason to even write me, but they went out of their way to look me up and send me letters. And that's when I started knowing how amazing and powerful it was. Like, it was one thing that it was letting me do what I wanted to do, but the stories that were coming in was like, those were truly jaw-dropping, eye-opening type stories.
Do you find that one of the interesting things I always think for any kind of development of a system is that at some point you come across something that stumps you. Is there anything at the moment that you're playing with, that you're exploring, that you want the system to try and overcome? Is there things like that you're discovering on your way? Because you've been doing it a few years now.
I've been doing it for 10, 11 years now, almost 12. Here's what I've learned. You can dive in so deep into these just 5 simple things that it's an abyss, and it always rewards you with new information, new knowledge. And I know that sounds so weird, but it is. You'll find every bit as much as what you're looking for if you're seeking it. Like, and I know that sounds weird. Throughout the 12 years, I have injured myself several times, been fortunate enough to do that. Peter, when you saw me, 2 days before you saw me, I tore my psoas.
You sent out, I think you sent an email about that, didn't you? Saying, right, I'm going to have to tell the truth here. You were like, I've been hiding this, but actually that goes against your integrity. So you were like, right, I'm putting this out there. But I remember you saying that. Yeah, you did well though, because it didn't look like you had.
Well, how do you do that?
How did I do that? I was not listening to my body. It was telling me that I was very tired. I was very stressed, and I was going to, I wanted to feel better though. So I was going to do a very intense workout just to get off some stress. and that was the last thing I should have done. I was doing split jumps, and I landed, and then I felt a banjo string pop. And just to make sure that wasn't my imagination, I tried 2 or 3 more because I'm stupid. And it turns out it wasn't my imagination. But so I was moving very, very slow at that workshop that Peter was at. But because of press and reset and stuff, though, I was able to still move very well. I just couldn't
tell. I couldn't.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell. Yeah.
I just couldn't express. I wasn't going to run any sprints that weekend, or 6 months later. But but as far as movement,
I did notice actually. Was it Richard, the guy who you had helping you, the Scottish guy? You were getting him to demonstrate a lot. Actually,
I had him demonstrate everything.
Well done.
So, Tim, where is Original Strength at the moment? Like in terms of you just before we started recording, I think you were telling us you've got a venue, a facility, a gym yourself.
Yes.
Do you have people physically come to you to, members of the public come and do Original Strength? I know you obviously train trainers as well, and you do workshops and things like that. Are you doing more online at the moment? I mean, where is Original Strength at the moment in the kind of current climate, with everyone in various stages of sort of lockdown and coming out of lockdown and going into lockdown and that sort of thing?
Yeah, so this has been a season of learning and adaptation. So for the educational aspect of it, so we have Original Strength systems, and so all of our certifications and workshops that we would have normally traveled for, we've learned how to do them online, but still where we get participation, because OS doesn't make any sense if you don't experience it. So that was our biggest hesitation, was to doing online stuff, because I don't want just people watching something and then going away thinking they know it, or they're just dismissing it because they didn't experience it. So we figured out a way to encourage the participation. So it's just like a live workshop. It only is through your screen. Didn't sound like that would be too hard to figure out, but it took us a while. So all of our certifications, though, are currently are online. We do hope to start traveling again very soon. But until that day, we've learned how to press reset virtually. And then, so for my brick and mortar business, though, the Original Strength Institute, we do have our community is able to come with us, and some people do travel some distances to come by and, see us and hang out with us. But
whereabouts are you based in the States? Where are you?
So I'm in North Carolina, right in the center of the state, below Raleigh, North Carolina. My town is called Fuquay Varina, so I just tell everybody I'm from Raleigh, North Carolina.
Okay. And do you work with people? I mean, do you still work with people yourself on a one-to-one basis, or are you more about groups and you have trainers that do that for you now, or where are you at with things?
I'm both. I work with people one-to-one, one-on-one in person. I also do it virtually online, and I do still teach workshops. I enjoy that. But yeah, I kind of still do both, and I also teach classes at my studio too.
What would a class look like that you run? Would it involve external loads, like loaded carries, or I mean, how do you kind of scale your classes?
So I call the classes more like farm work training, manual labor camp. So the first 10 minutes of class is pressing reset. We go through the big five. After that, we do farm work. We do a lot of carries, dragging things, pushing things, crawling. So I have sleds, I have rocks, I have sandbags, I have kettlebells, I've got ropes. So we do all these things that men would have probably done working outside somewhere. Just very, very, so very little weightlifting. Now we do honor the, like I'm Dan John, push, pull, hinge, squat, carry. We do all the human movements. So throughout the course of the hour, we're going to go through all those major human movements in some fashion. And then the last 10 minutes or 5 minutes of class is rolling around on the floor again, rocking back and forth and resetting the nervous system again.
Do you do any skill work based like on precision jumping and things like that? Or do you find that most people can't handle the impact of things like jumps and stuff like that?
So because of I'm kind of like Peter, with when people get older in life, the mid 30s to mid 60s is most of my clientele. So I don't do a lot of, I mean, we do some bounding and some like how to jump and land, but not a lot of terribly like stuff that's going to keep them safe outside. But I'm not trying to get them better at their soccer game or anything else like that.
I wish I had. I mean, obviously, like I say, I use the stuff, but I wish I've just had an idea because I did my garden recently. We dug up a lawn and planted a load of stuff. I could have got all my guys around and charged them to do it for me.
Funny,
From what
funny.
you're saying, doing farm work and everything, I could have made a fortune out of that.
Funny story. 5 years ago, when we moved buildings within the town, we had one of our classes take our equipment and walk down the street a few blocks to the new place, and that's how class was moving our stuff.
Yeah, well, my guys are doing that at the minute because like I dished a load of equipment out because we're not allowed to share equipment, so they have to bring it with them outside. And one of them parks his car, drops it off, and then goes away in his car and comes back. And I'm like, carry it with you. And he just won't. And I'm like, oh, I failed as a trainer. Oh,
Can't
help
throw something at him.
But when we talk about the movements, and like I said, it's your imagination can go wild. I mean, I've been using this stuff for ages, but every time I look up your stuff on YouTube, I'm like, oh, I never thought of that. There's something else, and there's something else there, or you explain it in a different way. So there are just infinite possibilities, like you say. So I'd encourage anyone who hasn't seen that on YouTube, by the way, to just look you up because you've got a huge library on there of everything. And you can just find a place to start. Because like you say as well in the manual and in your book, it's like you start here, but if that's too much, you just go back to the beginning. There's a continuum, isn't there? So there's a level somewhere where you can start off and then just go from there.
Yeah, because however you start moving, you're starting from a good spot. Everybody's starting from good. Remember, their nervous system is just doing what it's supposed to do based off the information it's getting. So what we do is we just take the information you're able to give and start playing with it. It may be that you just need to start moving your eyes, instead of like a lot of people just live in glasses. So they never go outside their frame of reference, literally, right? Because they can't see. So they get really used. Yeah. Yeah. So they don't, so it could be something as simple as just moving and turning your eyes gives your nervous system something that says, oh, thank you, finally. And it lets everything go. And it can be that fast. We're looking for snowflakes. Yeah. We're just looking little snow because you cannot have an avalanche without the first snowflake. So we're just looking to lay those snowflakes down and build up all that power.
Well, you can do that right now. You can say to someone, right, tilt your head back as far as you can while looking down, while your eyes are looking down. And they'll be like, okay. And they'll feel their abs and everything while they're looking down. And then you go, right, now look up. So everyone at home do this. Look down, tilt your head back as far as possible, and then look up. Bang. And then all of a sudden your back muscles switch on, don't they? And then you're like, So just something as simple as that. Honestly, when I was learning all this stuff years ago, just things like that blew my mind. And I was like, oh, okay. And then, I was like, right, I want to learn more about that. Because that's where people struggle with themselves, I think, like very, very small things like that. And as long as you get that kind of, I don't know, I'm going to say education, but as long as people kind of start to learn this stuff for themselves, then this whole world opens up of this reflective strength idea and your body moving in a better way.
So the most wonderful thing about our design is we get to be creators. We get to create our nervous system. And we're always creating it anyway, but we can build it up how we want it, or we can just let it happen how we're living. So we can add new connections, or we can prune connections that we want away by not engaging in them. But we can absolutely create the nervous system and the body we want through engagement. So if we want something from it, we challenge it. We ask it. And, so if you give your body a challenge, you're asking it for that. Like, so if I want better balance, well, okay, challenge it.
Yeah.
and then
Stand on
it
one leg.
rewards me, or roll on the floor.
Yep.
Like, you know, if you want better balance, just roll. Just like go back to those very, you know, those things you did as a child on the floor, and it will tie everything back together. But if you never ask for it, you don't get it. And in fact, you lose more and more and more.
Well, we take it for granted. We say, "Oh, I've got it now. I don't need to maintain it." I mean, I look at my kids and they explore the living room in such creative manners. It doesn't matter. I mean, you look at an object and they'll find some way of making it into a toy and exploration. They're rolling and they're doing so many things, and they'll, you know, and they don't see it as a workout or anything. They see it as just an opportunity to kindle their imagination and see what happens.
So your children see the living room furniture as a parkour course.
Yeah.
And we see a chair, a couch, you know, and that's it. Whereas they see, no, this is movement central. This is amazing.
bit of product placement here, but you saw your kids, Tim, playing with a very, very popular brick type structure of toy originated in Denmark, I think it was, wasn't it?
Yes.
And like in one of your roles,
Lego.
isn't it? So what happened there?
So yeah, I saw my 11-year-old playing with Legos on the floor, sitting down, and I saw how he would reach for another piece, and I'm watching him. I'm like, holy cow. So I got down on the floor and I started doing it, you know, like he was. I was copying him. And then just right then I knew. I was like, oh, this is beautiful. What a movement. Totally learned how to mobilize the foot, the hip, like, and so restore the lower body, just like that, watching him play with Legos.
Yeah. Brilliant.
They also use my stomach as a trampoline.
Yes.
And have like a Exocet missile guidance system for my nether regions to jump on that. I don't know how to do it.
My dog does that. He's got 4 legs, right? Obviously, because he's a dog. He'll walk across me on the sofa. 1, 2, 3, 4, bang. And guess where that one lands?
Would you say, Tim, that the people that tend to seek you out or to find you or to come and find original strength, are they, I'm just trying to think the kind of people who may try to find you. Are they more people who have maybe got some miles on the clock and they've you know, tried other things, they've done other forms of exercise or sport, and now they're in pain, so they're looking for something different? Or who comes and seeks you out generally? I
would guess that a lot of the majority is people that are dealing with their own, you know, issues. And then, interestingly, there a lot of them are in the health and fitness world. You know, they're working with other people, and I think so it's a twofold thing. They're trying to learn how to help themselves, but also gain the information to help other people too.
Yeah. Excellent. Because it's not the kind of thing that, you know, if you've got, you know, kind of CrossFit down the road and then you've got original strength, you know, there's going to be a certain type of person who'll be drawn towards the CrossFit sort of, you know, they go there for that, or, you know, so the kind of people who walk towards original strength are going to be or they may be the CrossFit people who are in pain coming to you.
It's about the same.
It's a great place to set up an original strength studio just down the road from.
Well, so in my town, I would guess that I would call CrossFit mostly for the younger folk, whereas my studio would be mostly for the people that see the value in just feeling good to feel good so that they can enjoy their lives. However, nothing against CrossFit. In fact, I would say that people could do CrossFit as long as they wanted to, if they had their reflexive strength in place, and they could enjoy it well into their 50s and 60s and 70s if they were, you know, just kept their body moved in their design, press reset, you know, on a daily basis. And really that's easy when you're living in your design anyway. You're just doing it because you're being. But then that would allow you to live your life the way you want to. And if that's CrossFit, great, enjoy it.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. Yeah. And I think that's most of the listeners that we have are probably in the, you know, the north of sort of 35, 40 age group, and, you know, into 50s and 60s and that sort of thing. So I think the things that you're talking about today will resonate, and everyone, I mean, even myself, from my own experience, it really resonates, that idea of, you know, like I mentioned, being in pain and then those compensatory movements and, living your life in a way that allows you to work around pain rather than actually dealing with the cause of it and pressing reset. So it's been fantastic to hear about.
Awesome.
Excellent. Right. Well, we've been on the go for a bit more than an hour, so this is probably a good place to stop, isn't it? So, Tim, thank you for coming on. Thank you for your insights. Just a quick one. I've got your book, Pressing Reset. Like I said before we started recording, I've given that to several of my guys, and if anyone ever sounds like they need any of this stuff and they're not any close by to me, I'll just say buy this book, or I'll even send it to them. So that's really good. But where can people find you, and how can they attend one of your courses online? Or because you don't have to be a trainer, right? You can be anybody.
Mm-hmm.
This is for anybody.
Everyone's welcome. So on our website, originalstrength.net, we have a courses tab that shows all the workshops that are coming up. We also have a resources tab, like if you wanted to get books or a DVD or other educational products. You can always go to Amazon.com. All our books are there. We've probably got 6 or 7 books on Amazon. And then we have on YouTube, we have probably over 400 free videos that if you just played with those alone, you could probably find everything you're looking for.
Excellent. I'll put all of that into the notes when we're
oh, awesome.
Up. So hopefully you'll get a few people coming your way and getting better, getting stronger, getting healthier, which will be great. So thank you very much for coming along, Tim. It's been great having you on here.
Peter, Paul, James, thank you guys so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, lovely to meet you, Tim. Yeah, lovely.
Yeah. So nice James, have you got anything you want to add at the end of this?
Oh, I just want to say probably that this really is a good episode to come after the Steve Maxwell one, because I think that Steve brought up so much last week, and this what Tim's been talking about today, I think really actually follows on nicely and echoes a lot of what he, that whole kind of minimalist approach and that, preserving the body and the joints as we get older, and going back to basics and moving well, and taking the emphasis off of load and bravado and ego and that sort of thing, and actually just like you say, training and living and moving to feel happy and healthy, which is a really great message. And I think perfect, really enjoyed it. It's been lovely to meet you.
Nice to meet you, sir.
Excellent. And what about you, Paul? Are you going to do your spiel?
Do my roundup? No, I mean, when I first came across Original Strength, it really took me down an avenue I was really happy to go down, because I've always been looking at ways of, you talk about the superhero and discovering that kind of physical freedom. And that's been a bit of a quest for me over the years, but it's certainly something that I see is essential for my own clients, where I see them limited. It seems that they are limited, but they're not. And I think right at the beginning, you said, you have the possibility, you have the agency, you have the self-efficacy to make these fundamental changes in your path. And your body wants to help. Your body wants to be healthy. It wants to be the fittest it can be at any point. It's a survival mechanism, and we're only as good as the information we put in. And I think one of our jobs as trainers is to show the path that it can be done, and obviously walk the walk to a degree, but to be that cheerleader saying, look, you can do this, there's other people doing this. And I think what I like about the system is it's so scalable that no one can go in there and be intimidated by the movements. There's a learning curve, and there's instant feedback that tells you that's working. All we got to do, I think, as an individual, is to make the decision to do it. I think, because if you do it, we can talk about it all day, but I know that you're a living embodiment of your own system. You do it and you practice it, and you see the benefits. All I can say is just do what Tim says, because it will work. Just do it. Don't just talk about it or say you've done it for a week.
Excellent. Yeah. And from my point of view, like you say, you came into it to do it to help yourself. And that's why I came into it. That's why I'm doing I mean, that's why we all do what we do, right? We want to help ourselves, but then you can use that information to help people who are in a similar situation to where you've been, where you've come from, and that's what we're all about. So that is perfect. So Tim, thank you again. And yeah, you can find, if you're listening to us on one of your favorite platforms, remember you can share it with your friends. If you think this will help any of them, you can, leave us a review. You can send us questions as well. We do have an email address. We have something that we're going to tell you in a couple of episodes time as well. That'll help to make it easier to get in touch with us as well. With questions you've got for any of our guests, any guests you want to come back on, any guests you want to see on the show or hear on the show, we're open for anything. So yeah, and then next week for episode 38, I think it is, which will tie in very nicely with this, is Perry Nicholson. So we're looking forward to talking to him. And yep, this will tie in very nicely with this because he's all about getting up and down off the floor as well. So that'll be perfect. So thank you for listening. And we shall see you and speak to you on the next one. We appreciate you all. Thank you very much.
You've been listening to Health Odyssey with Peter Lant, Paul Bassett, and James St. Pierre. To get your regular fix of hype-free health, you can subscribe and leave a review wherever you get your favorite podcasts. You can find out more on today's and other topics at healthodyssey.com or find us on Facebook or Instagram by searching for Health Odyssey.